WeAreDenver. This is Nothing Explained with Sampson.
Hi, everybody. This is Nothing Explained. I'm Sampson, and in the course of this podcast, I will explain nothing. As such, I am not responsible for anything that comes out of my mouth. I do not give legal advice. I do not give financial advice. I don't give another piece of advice I usually say that I can't forget right now. So, on today's show, I am very excited to be starting the first of what I've decided will hopefully be a series of pieces revolving around archetypes. And today's archetype is the Sacred Prostitute. So, we are joined today by a good friend of mine, Zoe, who is sitting in a chair right here. Say hello.
Hi.
Zoe is an extremely intelligent, extremely beautiful activist woman, and so much more. But she is also an exotic dancer. She does not sell all of her body for money, but you can get a good look at it if you join her at the club there she works, which is in downtown Boulder. And it's very nice. I went there on Friday night, and I hung out, and I saw the site so that I would be prepared.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good. I spent like $60.
Okay.
Yeah. I went and did the strip club thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, actually... another friend of ours joined me as well. It was really nice. I went to a strip club with another woman, so I felt really cool. And she's actually watching from the wings here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's got to change the experience, I assume.
A little bit.
You think?
Yeah. But we can get into that more later.
Oh, yeah. This is so interesting to me.
So I just kind of want to start with your start, and we talked a little bit beforehand, like a little bit of prepping, and I know that we didn't want to get too much into, because like we've got really important things to talk about, much less about your personal experience, so to speak. But as part of how you got started, it's very important to, I think, for the listeners out there to know that you are married, and your partner and you have been together since your acceptance into the industry. So why don't you give us a little recap of how you ended up being an exotic dancer?
Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, Sampson, thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's very exciting, and I am really grateful for having my voice heard, because I really care a lot about this, and then I care a lot about the way that people in our society kind of perceive the archetype of the sacred prostitute, strippers, the type of people so-called that strippers are,
Right.
And kind of debunking a lot of the stereotypes. So yes, as you mentioned, I am married. We've not been married for very long, almost a year. But
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But we have been together for 7.5 years. And so I am 29 now. I did my first kind of experience as a dancer when I was 23, and that was very brief, and it was kind of uncomfortable. I was in college at the time, and I had an unpaid internship, and I needed to pay my bills, and I was having trouble finding any kind of other industry job, and so I tried that out, and it was more like I wanted to challenge myself. I was interested in it. I'm a very sexual woman, and I like teasing. I like flirting. I like being seen.
Who doesn't? That's good stuff.
Yeah. I had experience as being like a fitness instructor, so I was comfortable being in front of people in that way, having my body looked at and like being like the model for, whatever. And I had been in, restaurants and stuff and working at Hooters. And so Hooters, I kind of joke, is like the gateway drug to stripping. Because, you kind of get acclimated to the type of energy, the type of customer that comes in.
What does that feel like? I'm sorry. I'm really interested, because that's got to be a crazy experience.
Which part?
Just the moment that you are this icon for people, this archetype or flirting with this thing. When you engage in that, what does that feel like? What's it?
It can feel a lot of different ways, and it depends upon quite a few different factors. And one of them is, whoever is, like, let's say it's one person or a group of people, a group of men and women, like, that's going to impact how it feels.
Of course.
So if somebody comes in and is just like, whoa, you are so gorgeous. Oh my God, I just can't get over it. Like, I'm so amazed. I so appreciate you. You're so stunning. Like, people can give really genuine compliments and feedback in that way that feels very validating.
It's going to change the experience.
Yeah. So. I mean, even as, at Hooters, it was like guys that would come in and have that kind of mentality, and like you could tell in their attitude how they were relating to it. If they're like entitled or arrogant or rude or, kind of disembodied or not very attentive to the fact that this is real life and I'm a real woman, then it can start to get kind of icky. And that's where a lot of the kind of,
wow,
pervertedness comes in terms of like, there's nothing inherently wrong about being a sensual, sexual, embodied woman.
Yeah.
But then, cultures and religions come and they shame it. And
that is such
they
an
pervert
interesting-
it.
yeah.
And then things like our culture comes in, wants to monopolize on it and turn it into a thing about money and not money for the woman necessarily, or to help women or to help empower women, but to use women for their bodies, like in beer commercials and weird shit like that.
Yeah.
Well, the shaming creates the commodity effect.
Right.
In the same way that weed used to be really expensive because it was illegal, and now it's incredibly hard to even just ditch the stuff.
I hear it referred to as the virgin whore dichotomy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's something that's an ancient myth and archetype that pretty much anyone who's ever studied archetypes.
Isn't it interesting how they exist on such opposite polarities?
Always
but if you
duality.
wanted to take the virgin and cross her into whore, that is the highest paid echelon of that whole realm.
It's really quite absurd how sometimes I will interact with men who, I'm very highly educated. I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, and they're like, well, what are you doing this? And I'm like, I can afford to live in Boulder, and I actually really like it, by the way. There's this huge list of benefits of how this serves me and why I like it.
Tell us, why do you like it?
Oh my gosh, where to begin? So obviously, I think the main appeal probably of most people getting into this industry, most women, is the money. It's good money. If you know what you're doing, it's really good money. And it's, the schedule. I mean, from club to club, I've worked at a few clubs. The club I work at and is my favorite and that I've been at the longest, I've been there just over 3 years now. It is on Pearl Street in Boulder. So Boulder is a very specific kind of client base, So it's, I think that my experience has been kind of specific to that. I like Boulder. I live in Boulder, so I can drive 5 minutes down the street. I make my own schedule. If I want to take a week off to go home to Indiana, visit family, if I want to go to a music festival, as long as I can afford it, I can always afford to take the time off. It's not like I have to really report into anybody. I have only limited, days off or whatever. That's awesome. If I'm having a night where I'm planning on working and then something comes up and I'm, my knee is kind of achy, or
Why do you think that your industry has that kind of freedom and most other industries don't?
Well, so I'm actually a contractor, not an employee.
Gotcha.
And I think
That's the best.
in most cases, you don't want to really be like, in some clubs I've been to, you can have the option of being an employee, but you really don't want that because basically they take all your money and they only give you a certain amount, and it just takes away a lot of the liberties. And it actually is not great for the club either. And I don't really know a lot about that or why, but flexibility schedule. I am in great shape. I've never been in better shape in my life. I'm more flexible than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, because your work requires all of
Yeah.
that.
People are like, ooh, how do you stay in shape? And I'm like, do you see me up here, what I'm doing? It's like Pilates in a chair, basically. So there's that. I actually really like being naked. I like taking my clothes off, and I love my body. I love my body.
That is something that no one should be ashamed of ever saying or declaring.
It's like, definitely, you can see dancers sometimes that are insecure. You can, you can read it on them.
There was that woman who was new.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about that, but it was very, very evident in her body language that she was new to the scene.
Yeah. Or you can have a girl who comes in who, and I say girl, and I don't mean it girl, woman. I mean, I'm 29. Other dancers are 10 years younger than I am. So to me, they are girls. And also I kind of say girls like, oh, my girls, my bitches, like I can say that.
You can say whatever you want. This is uncensored.
Yeah. But like for instance, you'll have she was maybe the hottest girl in high school and is used to being the hottest girl in the room. And now she's in a room where she's not the hottest girl. She's just another one of the hot girls. So that can be, a lot of insecurities will come up.
Yeah.
It's kind of competitive sometimes. I think our club is not very competitive. We are friendly with each other. We're playful. We flirt with each other sometimes on stage. I think a lot of us are bisexual. So it's not just like we're putting on a show. We're legitimately playing with each other, and people are just
that's much
getting
better.
to watch, like lucky for them, you know?
Yeah.
And in some cases, it is a show because some girls are maybe not as into it, or, you know, I like this girl, not this other girl, or whatever.
Well, it's an interesting dichotomy, and I've encountered this in regular old acting, which is that you have to be genuine and totally absolved in your own world without forgetting that the audience is there.
Exactly.
If you can do that, then you're connected with the audience and experiencing what they're experiencing. So in that way, you're not really living in your own world. You're sort of living in the world of the audience.
Right. It's all about
yeah.
awareness. Awareness of the atmosphere and awareness of one's own body.
And the other actors, if there's like other dancers with
Right.
you or whatever it is, yeah. And the more genuine that can be, of course, it's a great experience.
Okay, so let's pull it back just a little bit. So you got started needing a little bit of money in college, and you related this story to me. So I just want to touch on the quickly the kind of interaction with both your partner and your father, because that was interesting as well.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So, my mother has always been very supportive of pretty much every decision I've ever made in my life, and my father not so much. He's a bit more conservative. I should say he's exceptionally more conservative.
Gotcha.
So when it came down to it, you know, because my internship was actually in a different city and I was not at the time living with my partner, even though when we had been together, we were living together. It was like a long distance thing, and he was uncomfortable. He was like, you know, I don't know this town. I don't know this club. You've never done this before. I'm not going to tell you, you can't do it. That's not my place. You know, he was supportive in the way of, if you want to try this out, you know, go for it. Like, I think that's amazing. I think it's,
incredible.
you know, really cool that you want to try that. And I'm, you know, going to be concerned about your safety and about how, you know, all the things that could happen. You know, it's a really kind of...
I'm trying to put myself in the place where I would be a father in that situation.
Yeah. Oh, so this was my partner.
Partner, sorry.
So this was my partner. At the time, we had been together, I think, just a few years.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And, well, so it kind of came down to it where he had said to me, you know, I tried it for a couple of nights, maybe a week or two, and he had said to me, you know what, I think I would feel more comfortable with it if you told your dad and if I knew that he was comfortable with it. And I had already told, you know, some friends and my mom and my sister, and they were all, you know, yeah, we love you, you know, no judgments, just be safe.
Okay.
So I did tell my dad, and he was not comfortable with it.
Gotcha.
To the point that he was like, how much money do you need? I'll just pay your bills. And, you know, the kind of relationship I had with my father is that he had always been, you know, really financially available to provide in a lot of ways, but then very distant in most other ways.
That's actually a perfect example right there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he wasn't comfortable even asking me, well, why do you like to do it? Why do you want to do it?
Right.
What is it like for you? Like, he wasn't really interested in my experience. He wanted me to show up in such a way that he was comfortable and he didn't have to think about it. So in order for that to happen, he's like, okay, well, I can just fix this problem by paying for your stuff. Until, you know, several years later, I was 23 at the time, and I was still at the point where I was like, okay, I'll let my dad pay for some stuff. But there's a certain point at which, you know, I wanted to be independent, and where I also felt like it was very patronizing and condescending and like kind of taking away some of my liberties. I'm like, you know what? I don't need to do anything for you to be comfortable. Your feelings are your feelings for you to be in charge of.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to get into it here in Boulder, I was halfway through my master's degree. I had a 2-year program, and I was working at a dispensary. I ended up stopping doing that. I finished my semester, and so I did not have a job. And I was like, well, amateur night, that could be fun. The prize was enticing, and I had my partner and then one of our friends. They helped me get ready, and they came into the club with me, and, you know, they were rooting for me from the stage. And it was exciting. We had actually gone karaokeing earlier that night. I was like, well, if I can sing in front of people, surely I can take my top off in front of people. You know, this should be easy. I was like, singing is almost more, you know, intimidating.
Well, yeah, you definitely don't have to.
Yeah.
I think you'd be pretty confident, like with your shirt off, that you look good, and then with your voice out, you can be very not confident that you sound good.
Right.
You know,
You sound different in your head too.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
too.
different thing. But yeah, well, that's incredible.
but so it stuck.
Yeah, so I actually won the amateur contest.
Figured.
I was one of 5 participants, and it was packed in there.
Actually, yeah, you should tell that story about like you worked the crowd.
I
First,
did. I
too.
worked the crowd. So like that's I'm a very personable person. I like to talk to people and I like to connect, and I'm good at it. And so that was kind of my shtick that night, so to speak, was I went around before the contest went on, and I introduced myself to quite a few people at the stage, and I said, "Hey, I'm Zoe, and I'm going to be doing, the amateur night, and will you guys cheer for me?" Because that's how they rate the winners. It's like based on loudness and applause. And these guys were like, "Oh, yeah, tight, awesome."
Stripper lobbying.
I love your guy voice.
Thanks. Yeah, and I did. I went up there, and there were some of these other women were doing pole tricks, and I was just like walking around and smiling and kind of shaking my butt at people. And it worked. And the manager came up afterwards, and he's like, "Are you looking for a job?" And I was like, oh my God. Well, I mean, I need a job. I wasn't really thinking that. So it kind of just snuck up on me. Like I wasn't anticipating getting back into it. It was just supposed to be that one night, but then the opportunity presented itself. And
How long's it been now since that moment?
so that amateur night was the first Wednesday. We do amateur nights the first Wednesday of every month. This was in May 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, cool. I'll dance for a year. I'll finish my degree. I'll get into my field. And getting into my field just has not been as easy as I thought it was going to be. Because I'm exceptionally particular and very picky, and I know my value. And now that I know that I can have this much fun doing something that I love for really good money,
That's what matters.
I'm not going to take an entry-level position with a master's degree and make $14 an hour.
No.
So that's,
That's
I'm like, no.
unacceptable.
I know I can do better than that. So I have overlooked many job opportunities that I was qualified for just because I was like not into it.
If you got a job opportunity that was financially worth it, but not as fun as your current job, would you take that opportunity?
I would. I think I would. And also, I'm the kind of person that needs a lot of variety and experience. That's actually one of the reasons I like to dance, because I can talk to and dance with so many different people.
Yeah.
It's a different experience every night. It's a different experience every hour of every night, But yeah, I think I would, as long as it was satisfying. And the thing about this industry too is that you can really kind of pop in and out at any point. This particular club I work at, we have a contractual agreement where we do a minimum, give or take. There's flexibility, of course, as I mentioned, but 3 nights a week. Versus there are clubs I know in Denver where you only have to work 1 night a month to kind of be considered, that you have a contract there. So if I wanted to do something else, I could still, if I missed it, I could go occasionally
You can go back
and have fun on a Saturday night or whatever. If I needed a little bit extra cash, I could go do that relatively easily.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into the deep stuff, I did want to kind of cover the just some of the kind of the basics. Someone out there might not have been to a strip club. So
I actually have never been to a strip club.
Right on.
Well,
So let's talk about some of the etiquette, like how if you think that you should dress in a certain way, like if you think a strip club it makes sense to dress up a little
Oh my
bit,
God,
how much
I'm
money
so
you should
glad you
expect to
asked.
spend, and
Yes.
maybe the difference between a really nice place where you work and like some place like Dandy Dan's on Federal.
Dandy Dan. That's a real
didn't
place.
even know
It's a
that was
real
a
place.
place.
Dandy Dan.
Wow, I'm
My
sure
friends live
there's
over
a
there. I drive by
reason.
it all the time. I've not been in it, but I've heard stories.
We should go.
That's
Now I'm
classic.
curious.
Famous last words, classic quote of anyone. Oh, I've never been in there, but I've heard stories. There you go.
Right. Okay, I'm so glad you asked, Sampson, because first of all, please do not wear basketball shorts or sweatpants. I swear to God. No, it's gross and it's weird and it's tacky.
You are out like a boner in sweats.
Flip-flops can kind of have that sort of thing with me too. And also, like, when we're on stage, we have a very unique stage because our club is in the basement. So we have very short ceilings, and our stage is actually not elevated. We're not on a platform where on the same level that you are, and you don't want your little toes getting stepped on by a 7-inch, stripper heel.
Yeah, that is not any fun.
Yeah, so just kind of looking nice. Button downs are nice. In the winter, like guys when they wear really soft sweaters, because it's just like, it's just nice for me when I'm, throwing my legs over his shoulder. I'm like, cozy.
I'll remember
Just
that.
a personal
I like that
preference.
when I go back to a strip club in 5 years.
Life is such a crazy thing.
But, I think it's less about the dress and more about the kind of attitude that one comes in with. The etiquette is, of course, if you are coming to the club, bring money. If you want to hang out and drink, go to a regular bar. That's, to me, it's like the number one thing of, let's say you're in a group and your friends are spending money and you just are kind of on a budget. Like, I understand that. I do. You'll get guys, though, that sometimes will kind of string a dancer along and say, oh, I want to dance, but not right now, later. And he never really has any intention of getting a dance. He just wants someone to talk to. And so it's just kind of, some dancers will tolerate that more than others. And, but it's like, be kind, be respectful, respect boundaries. If you've never been to any particular club, don't assume anything. There are different rules at different clubs, and each dancer has her own boundaries. So if some dancers want to be touched and some don't, you need to ask. Consent is very important. I really like to model consent on stage. So I can probably assume most of the time that men want to be touched, but even that is not always true. I've gone in, kind of leaned in, to a gentleman before, and he's kind of leaned back, and I'm like, oh, okay, like there's something there, that he's a little uncomfortable. He's a little on edge, and so me being gentle, which is totally my style, is really important. Especially if, like, let's say there's a woman at the stage. We're in college town. We get actually quite a few women coming in, which sort of surprises me sometimes. It's interesting.
I've never had a male friend ask me to go to the strip club, but I've had several female friends ask me before.
Yeah. There's a whole thing going on there.
It is interesting, isn't it?
I think that from my experience, the women that come in have varying degrees of a desire to interact.
Yeah.
A lot of times they just want to see you twerk and they think it's fucking awesome. And then some of them actually are really into women, or some of them are, kind of on the edge. And so I like to say, may I tease you a little, or are you okay with me touching you? And then that just shows everyone else around us that this is kind of a standard, or if I'm going into a particular lap dance situation, I'll ask first, like, hey, all right, like, I'm gonna, I'll be touching you as long as you're comfortable with that. And then I'll get, a resounding yes, and then I'll say, but you have to be hands off, so I like to be really upfront about my boundaries. Some dancers don't like to be upfront about boundaries, because they think that if they kind of are vague, they might get more money, But I don't like to do that.
the setting the boundaries thing. That makes sense to me.
I like to be really clear.
My experience in life is that I think that you would find that setting the boundaries would have the ultimate, most positive benefit overall, and that would include finances as well.
And it helps really kind of protect not only myself but also the client, because at the end of the night, I want to be leaving with my integrity intact. Everybody had a good time. Nobody feels that they've been taken advantage of. If I lead a guy into a dance and he's got this kind of vague expectation, and then I tell him later, no, that's going to create a little bit of tension. Yeah. And I would like to avoid any type of tension at all costs.
Makes you a good businesswoman.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the next thing, the last thing where it was just like, what would you... So delivering pizzas, my expectation was like, if you pay me $3, I'm good to go. Like, I deliver pizzas in Boulder. Anywhere in Boulder, if you hand me $3, that was me being like, all right, great, I'm good to go. What are your expectations for money in the club? Like, what would you consider bad behavior?
So if you're sitting at the stage, you're tipping. I would say put your money out, put your money on the table, literally. When a dancer sees money, she will come to you. The more money you have, the more attention you'll get. If a dancer is continuing to dance for you for an entire song, continue to tip her. And we will give cues often of when it would be an appropriate time to tip, or guys will just go for it, which if they know what they're doing, then they know. So it's, for me, a stage set is 3 or 4 songs, depending on the night and depending on the crowd. If I'm walking away from a stage set with $10, I'm pissed. If it's slow, if it's early in the night and there's 2 people, okay. But Sometimes it's slow and there's 2 people and I walk away with $40. You know, there is a difference. Lap dances, you know, most people, I don't know, I think most people don't tip on lap dances. I don't know why. You know, if you go out to lunch, do you not tip? When you go for a haircut, do you not tip? I think tipping...
Is there like the rule list anywhere in the club? Like, is there like a sign or anything?
No.
That was my next big question.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, you know, if you're someone who is not comfortable in that situation, like, you should feel comfortable being very open about your noviceness, because there's no better way to, like, strike a conversation with the best looking girl in the room, because at least you have something to talk about straight off the bat. You know?
If you're feeling kind of timid or shy, or you don't have that much money, you know, sit back at the table or sit at the bar. But if you're sitting at the bar all night watching the stage all night and not tipping, that's probably the creepiest and most disrespectful move you can make.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to stay for like a few minutes and then leave.
Let's say let's set the minimum, like, come in, have a beer, sit at the thing once, and tip like the 3 girls that are on the stage at the time. So you've got like $7 drink and maybe $10 per girl, so $37. That should be your basic minimum.
And that's for the course of maybe like 4 to 6 songs, and so you're looking at what a song is like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So
$40 beer, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. It's definitely not the kind of place that you really should come in if you are on a budget. I mean, like a low budget. You know, like for instance, college students, they sit there and they wiggle $1 at you, and then they're like, "Why haven't you taken your top off yet?" And I'm like, Are you serious? Like, this is not community service. That you are not entitled to see me topless. You pay first, and then you get to see the goodies.
That's such a curious experiment on like how value works for human beings.
Mm-hmm. And I want to get deep into that too, because this exotic dancing creates a very interesting situation in society, which yeah. So before we get like super deep, I did want to hit real quick. Let's just talk some of the basic stereotypes that you'll get. Daddy issues is the first one.
Yeah. So actually, I would say in my experience that, I mean, in the stripper industry or not, most people that I've become close to have some kind of issues with their family of origin, whether it's specifically with their fathers or whatever. People come from families where there's disconnection, you know, microaggressions, some kind of neglect or abuse. I would say in the industry, I think it's pretty common. But I don't think that it's necessarily particular.
Well,
it
it's
maybe
also
is
what
more
you mentioned
common
before, like that you're going to have conversations with, especially like fathers who are going to not like what's going on, and it's going to create tension.
And a lot of people, I think, I mean, this is not, I know this. It's not even just I think this. People in our kind of westernized culture are really weird about sexuality. Yeah. So you have men who have maybe their own kind of weird hangups on sex, and so when they have, you know, their daughters dancing, they get really uncomfortable about it, you know? And, but yeah, I have so many other people in my life that are not in the industry that have issues with their fathers. So I don't think that it's necessarily, specific.
Women are being driven to stripping in droves by their fathers.
No, I don't think it's really like that.
Right,
I think it's kind of a coincidence, really.
Drugs is
it's a common problem. So
Drugs.
So let's be honest. A lot of people like to do drugs. Again, not specific to strippers. I don't think that strippers are inherently weaker or more wrong because they have access and a party environment. You know?
And they can afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. It can become, you know, it can go from use to abuse to addiction. I have seen periods where dancers are using every night, you know, one substance or another, but it's they're highly functioning. They're having a lot of fun. It's kind of working for them. And then there are periods where those dancers, you know, they either are taking a break, they don't have the access, whatever, and they're not like hung up, but they're not fiending for it. Like I said, I work in Boulder, so it's, I think, probably a different kind of girls coming in to dance too. The girls are beautiful and natural and healthy and smart, and a lot of us are very educated. And
there was devastating amount of beauty in that room.
And it's a small club too. So
you were devastated, Sampson.
Totally devastated.
You know, on any given night we have probably on average like 8 to 12 dancers, whereas the club in Denver might have 50 dancers. So there's probably a lot more cocaine going around, for instance. When people are drinking is a drug. So pretty much, you know, coffee is a drug, sugar is a drug. You know, even if I know one girl for sure who doesn't drink, she'll sometimes, you know, hold a drink, but she won't actually drink it. And she's like really, she's a very businesswoman. So, I mean, is her work her addiction? Is her focus kind of, you know? So, I mean, I'm kind of talking addiction. I know you were asking specifically drugs, but
Oh, this is great.
I don't see it really as anything, again, particular to dancers.
And just a really random question is that I would assume this is going to be different from club to club, but like, what if somebody requested, like, I would assume this would be kind of a VIP situation, but to do a line off of a girl, like, is that something? How does that cross a line? Is that cool? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's definitely come up. It's definitely, you know, people will ask us if we are selling or if we can find cocaine for them. Specifically, I think people will, you know, they'll come in too. People will be, I think Molly, you know, MDMA and Coke are probably the two biggest ones. They're uppers, they're party drugs. It's definitely not allowed. It's not, I mean, it's legal and we're in a club and, you know, this is not a private party at someone's, you know, yeah, exactly. So I've seen it happen.
I could imagine it being somewhat common in like a lower end strip club where like those things aren't managed very well.
Right, for sure.
That'd be the thought. Yeah.
I've heard of strip clubs where the private rooms are literally, you can lock the door. You know, that would be, to me, extremely uncomfortable and I think unsafe. But
I agree.
yeah, it's relatively private. And I think that as long as we're being professional, you know, I don't know that I've never seen a dancer get fired because she got caught doing something. I don't know if girls are just really not doing it that much or if they're being really discreet. And if they're just making enough money for the club that maybe the owner doesn't care. I really don't know, you know?
How interesting.
I think that the owners and the managers have to know that this kind of thing is probably going on.
It's profitable to them, though.
Exactly. It is serving them. If they were to come through and search lockers and drug test girls, they would have, you know, maybe 2 girls dancing there.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like...
Yeah. How interesting.
Similar, but what about drinking in terms of, you know, is there a limit? Like, I'm an alcoholic stripper, I guess is where I'm going. Like, when does that become a problem? Is there a regulation in the club and with regards to preventing the girls from getting too hammered?
Yes. So if a dancer is getting drinks from the bar, whether she's buying them herself or having gentlemen buy them for her throughout the night, the limit at our club is supposed to be 4 drinks. We are not allowed to take shots. So it can be a mixed drink or a glass of wine or a glass of champagne, basically. And the idea behind that is that over the course of your... You know, the shift varies from 7 to 4 hours depending on what time in the night you come in. So, yeah, they don't want the girls being sloppy. You know, but some girls will drink before they come in, and some girls drink pretty heavily. You know, if a customer has bottle service, you can drink on their bottle, and there's really no way to monitor that. But if you get too sloppy, they will say something to you. But I don't think that happens very often, at least not that I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, and then they're always very aware of making sure that the dancers are getting home safe and not driving drunk.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yay.
You know, we're kind of like a little family, you know, like we have people looking out for each other, like gotten rides home from the DJ, you know, and I know the staff, the door staff, the bouncers, they are, you know, friends with some of the girls and they'll give them rides home or the bartenders. Yeah. So we can look out for each other.
Yeah, you have to. That's very good.
Yeah.
Well, then the last one before, well, actually not the last one. Let's do that and change. So what about the fact that strippers would sometimes be considered dumb? And you're on this show for the reasons that you're not. In fact, when I first approached you, I said, oh, you're a dancer? Who's the smartest girl there? I want to talk to her. And you were like, I think that'd be me.
Yes, I remember. You know... It's just no. It's just strippers are not dumb. I think if they're playing dumb, it's because they think that's what the customer wants to see.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like the ditzy blonde sort of archetype, I guess.
Well, it's you're just trying to give them what they want. You're trying to vibe with their thing.
I mean, in some cases that's true. For me, I am not really interested in trying to figure out what men want. Okay. I am interested in just being myself, and you're either into it or you're not. Turns out lots of people are into it, so that works in my favor.
Yeah.
But even if a dancer doesn't have a college degree, even if she didn't graduate from high school, maybe, there are different types of smarts. Mm-hmm. She knows how to tease and seduce. She can caress and soothe. She can be very nurturing.
That's certainly a type of intelligence.
That sexual intelligence is not, I don't think we get enough credit for that.
That's fair. That is totally fair.
You know, because I think a lot of the reason that we have men coming in that are in a relationship, whether they're dating or married, and they're coming in seeking out some type of, you know, sexual, sensual kind of expertise. Just the way that you would go to a barber or a car maintenance person for that type of specific skill, that specific need. Men are coming in because they're in some way dissatisfied with some kind of relational thing that's going on. They're looking for something that they're not getting in their daily lives, and we can provide that. And we know how to, and we're good at it. And we like doing it.
There's no shame in that.
Right.
There's no shame. I mean, there's plenty of cultures that have come before ours where sexuality and sex was more than just child making. It was also a form of healing.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
That's certainly something that could exist. I'm sure it probably maybe doesn't exist in every environment that's possible there, and certain situations. If you don't come in looking for the healing, and that's not what you're going to get out of it.
Right.
So there's lots of variables, but it has that potential, doesn't it?
Definitely.
To be something that can make someone more whole. Yeah, that's good.
It's also just, you know, street smarts, business smarts. We are sales women. I can't tell you how many times I've had people being like, "You should come sell cars for us." You know? I'm like, "Oh no, honey, I'm already in sales. I don't think you understand."
I'm already hawking some of the nicest bodies in town.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, of course, a lot of dancers are putting themselves through school or have finished school or whatever. So there is a level of, you know, education in terms of book smarts going on in there as well. I mean, I've seen dancers on a slow night sit in the dressing room and read, reading a book for fun or studying for a class, you know? Yeah.
I want to talk to those girls.
Yeah.
Like human
I
beings.
like books. Okay, so what would you say to someone who would suggest that you and your embodying, you know, feminine self are being anti-feminist, like that you're hurting the feminist movement by taking your clothes off?
I think probably that somebody who would say that has never been in my situation, has never actually experienced it. And so if you have an opinion of something based on your personal experience, that is a different kind of opinion than if it is based on an idea. If you're just like looking around and making judgments and making assumptions and, you know, listening to the ideas of other people and forming your opinions on that, you kind of don't really know what you're talking about. Unless you have had the experience directly, I don't think there's a lot of weight in that. So what I would say to a person like that is that in my experience, this has been an exceptional platform for me to practice communication, for me to practice my boundaries, identifying my boundaries and learning my boundaries. Like, oh my gosh, like I didn't like that. I thought that I would, or, oh, I did like that. I didn't know I would,
So an empowering experience.
It's very empowering as long as I am embodied. If I come in on a night and I'm already kind of feeling tender, sensitive, you know, like I had a hard day or I'm tired, if I'm not really 100% comfortably present, I've noticed that it won't be as empowering or it won't be as satisfying. But if I'm right there and I'm in it, you know, I drink sometimes, but I'm usually relatively sober or 100% sober. So I can really vet my clients, and knowing how to do that, and in the amount of time that I've been there, it's, you know, I've refined this process. I don't go for guys that are on their cell phones. I don't go for guys who aren't being attentive, who look too drunk, who look, you know, kind of sloppy. I don't go for guys that I perceive as being avoidant, like kind of cocky, standoffish.
So
like,
you
too
have
much
plenty
work.
of power as your own contractor.
Yeah. I don't have to dance for anyone that I don't want to dance for.
Yeah. That's very important.
It's awesome. And then, you know, because some girls will unfortunately come in, and I have been in this place, so I guess I'll speak from my experience. There have been times when I've been really in need of money, and I'll end up dancing for guys that I don't really want to dance for. You know, they're kind of like not that cool. They're not that nice.
Doesn't matter why.
You know, right. And those are, that to me is more like I'm degrading myself. And so in those cases where I prioritize money over my integrity and personal power, that is when it starts to get icky. So if you have a dancer who's doing that on a regular basis, she may not have a lot of contact with her own personal power. She may not have very high self-esteem. She might think that she needs,
But what better battlefield to learn such a thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's an incredible, like I said, human experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're getting. We got about 20 minutes left. So the last little bit here, I did want to touch on how much you see of like actual prostitution, like stripping as a gateway towards that whole business model.
Oh, I have very little to say on that because I've really not seen it.
That's good.
I've heard of it, but how much can you believe about what you hear? I mean, that's what I was just saying. I don't know that it's more common in Denver. Maybe I've heard stories about certain clubs in Miami. I mean, but in terms of where I work, it's as far as I can tell, it's just not happening.
Have you ever seen any crossover like Backpage Girls, where they might not be advertising in the club, which is probably not I would say not a wise idea, because that gives them access to you, so they can come.
It's
back.
Actually, you know what? What I can say is this: I feel so confident that kind of thing doesn't go on in a club at all, or if it does, it's like so discreet that I'm obviously not even noticing it, and I've been there 3 years. Yeah. That like when we have guys that come in that are from out of town or out of the country, and that's specifically what they're looking for, and that is specifically what they ask for, they won't be in the club for very long, because every girl that they talk to is like, oh no, I don't do that.
Good.
And then I've seen guys come in and they're like, well, we're only taking girls home with us. We're not buying lap dances. And I'm like, okay, well then you're not going to have very much fun tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are places where that happens, but I think that's also I think that's a good way to end the stereotype section, because all of those things I feel are unwarranted.
Good. Yeah.
They're not dumb. They don't have daddy issues. Not above the normal anyway.
Right.
We're all
They're not
dumb
addicted to anything. Not above the normal anyway.
Right, yeah.
I mean, like, drugs are so rampant in this society, it would be dumb to even try and approach that situation. But, okay, so then let's talk real quick about your expectations for your time, how much you value yourself in terms of money, and then I want to talk about money in general in this whole situation.
How much...
Yeah, so explain, like a dance is $30, right?
Right.
And then it's somewhere in there you're going to be giving them the option to go hang out in VIP?
Right. Yeah, okay, good. And this is actually a good time for me to bring into the kind of the exchange of money for services, in terms of, I've had people before think that because it's a business transaction, it doesn't feel authentic. So I'll bring that in a little bit too. Like, guys want to know, like, that you're the kind of girl that would enjoy going out for brunch and hanging out, and like they want to go on a date. And I'm like, this is not a dating service. This is a strip club. There is money involved. I'm sorry. That's just what's going on. But yeah, so we talked about the stage money. A lap dance is one song, $30. And our club is a topless club, not full nude, and we don't allow touching. There is contact initiated by the dancer, but not very much, And then if there is a desire for more privacy and a longer duration of an experience, we have the VIP suite. So instead of doing a few 3-minute songs or 3.5-minute songs, you're in there for a specific amount of time. We pay up front for those, and then we go into the room, and then we have our door staff comes back and checks on us periodically. A server will come back and offer drinks. And
how does the actual transaction go down? So
typically what I will do if I'm trying to get somebody interested is I'll be on stage, and I'm like, okay, I'm noticing who's noticing me.
Right.
Who's already paying attention to me. I don't want to have to really work that hard to get your attention. Because if that's the case, then you're maybe not that interested.
Which is okay. Like you said, you're interested in being you.
Right.
And everyone else can decide how
Some
they
guys
feel.
like butts, some guys like boobs, some guys like blondes. They want tall girl, skinny girl, short girl, whatever. So I'll find the guy that likes me. I'll kind of see what our energy is like. What kind of exchange do we have? Does it feel good? If it feels good, I'll offer a dance. Usually, if he gets a dance, I'll do I'll say, hey, we can talk about VIPs, but if you really kind of want to sample the goods, so to speak, before you jump into a $400 commitment, let's go do a dance, and then you can tell me what you think. I think choice is very important. I don't like pressuring guys into stuff. I like them to know that they have the choice to say yes or no, because I'm, like I said, not so hung up on the money. I don't need that particular person's money if he's not into it, if he doesn't think that the value is there, then that's okay. I'll just go ask somebody else. But yeah, so if a guy is like very enthusiastic and enjoying himself, I will do usually a 15-minute session for $250, a half hour for $400, and an hour for $700. And if it goes beyond an hour, which in some cases it does, then I can kind of negotiate. And it usually, it's kind of like, I don't want to say you get more bang for your buck because there's no banging happening. But usually it's like the longer amount of time you spend, the kind of more cost effective it is.
Yeah, like any business.
Right. Yeah. It's like buying in bulk, I guess.
Oh my.
I prefer my strippers not bulky, but that's just me.
Everyone's got their own.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So my question about the transaction, though, is it like, when do you charge somebody for something like that?
Oh, yes. So for a lap dance, typically we'll get the money at the end of the song.
Gotcha.
I used to be really anxious about that and want the money up front because sometimes guys will try to stiff you occasionally. They're like, you'll do 3 songs. Oh, I thought that was only 1 song.
Right. Well, like you said, you just want to avoid all that tension.
So now, I've gotten to the point that has not happened. I can't remember the last time that happened to me because I don't dance for guys like that anymore. I'm able to weed them out before I get to that point. So that happens then. For the VIP sessions, we go up to kind of a host stand and we do the financial transaction before we begin our session. So that actually protects the dancer too, because if at any point the gentleman is not being a gentleman, if he is really disrespectful of boundaries, being aggressive in any way, I have the right at any time to walk out. And he does not get his money back. And no, it's just like...
So it gives the power back to the dancer.
Exactly.
I like whenever that's the scenario.
Right.
I think that's when it's a good experiment for people to be people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just remembered one little question was, how was I think the DJ was in charge of who was being on stage, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but he knows who's in VIP. So if a girl gets sequestered, he knows not to put her back on the dance list, right? Or if she's like, I'm going to go do a lap dance and that might work, I'm due up at 2 songs, but he's paid for 4. He knows what's going on. He's orchestrating the whole thing.
So in some clubs that I've worked in, they're very particular about this is a rotation and you are on stage. And if you're not called on stage, you're going to piss someone off. Whether it's a DJ or the girl before you or the girl after you, they don't want to have to rearrange things. I think our club is small enough and easy enough. Literally the DJ can pretty much see throughout the entire room. So he's going to be able to pretty much see, oh, okay, Zoe is doing a lap dance. He'll just bump me down the list. We rearrange the list all night long.
Okay, that's cool.
So it's really pretty flow.
Good for him and his sound guy.
Yeah. And if I really if I've been really working hard and I need a break and we're really super busy, I can say, hey, will you skip the stage set? I'm just going to chill in the dressing room for a minute and have a snack, So usually they're really accommodating.
Sounds like you work at a good place.
Yeah, I love it.
That's the part that matters.
Okay,
a lot of people who don't love their work.
I want to spend the last 10 minutes kind of on the sacred sexual, but as the intro to that, let's talk a little bit about the idea of whether or not the situation is cheapened by the fact that it is involving with money. Because, personally, nothing makes me feel better than putting a girl at ease, So when people feel comfortable with me, that's when I'm like, yeah, I'm doing my job, And so the idea of reaching into my wallet to achieve that, rubs me the wrong way. I really, I enjoyed being in the club. I didn't mind, the separation of money. I don't make enough money to, not mind being separated from that much money. But I definitely very quickly got to the point where I was like, I feel undervalued, if I'm going to spend an hour with you for $700, that's a week for me. And so I'm like, fuck off, bitch.
Yeah.
That's no way. No way. Because that's me standing in my power. So it's a really interesting situation to sit there and be like, why do you get that much money?
Let me put it to you this way. I think the best way for me to describe it is that this is a luxury service. This is a privilege. So if you can't afford it, then, you go for a half hour. Not a half hour, I'm sorry. You go for a song. If that's something that interests you. And for the clients that can afford it, I've had people balk at my prices before. They are sometimes they'll just scoff, they'll laugh in my face. I find that to be extremely disrespectful because, it is so empowering to be able to know that I can receive that dollar amount, and I'm not violating my own boundaries.
No.
And I'm not even taking my panties off. It's like, I've seen documentaries about porn where girls don't even get paid that much for a blowjob. And it's like, that is horrific to me. So to know that it's like, here I am, I have this goddess energy, I have this sacred feminine embodied spirit that here I am, I'm going to share this such vulnerable piece of myself with you and be comfortable doing it. And knowing that I'm being appreciated and being compensated, that is amazing. I mean, my best clients I've ever had have been, secure men, not, I don't know, I'm bringing in a little bit of psychology here, but like there's kind of anxious attachment, people that are like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. They just compliment you and they want your phone number and like kind of clingy, anxious attachment. Then there's like avoidant, like where the intimacy actually is almost too much for them. Those guys, they don't usually even get dances, probably as much. But then there's the secure guys who understand what's going on is a consensual adult experience, that we both are having needs being met, that we're having an exchange here, and that they value the exchange. They are like, wow, yeah, $700 for an hour with Zoe in this, in this really cool experience, in this nice environment with good music, it's good vibes. We're having fun. It's healing. In some ways it can be like having a massage or actually going for like a therapy session with a psychotherapist. It's like you can have certain types of healing in those scenarios.
And even in the exchange itself is what you're saying. And I understand, and I think that makes sense to me. It is... I think unfortunate is the word that comes to me, that money has to be the medium for that value.
It's interesting though, and I think that a lot of men I've talked to have expressed that, and I think there might be just some kind of disconnect because I had this one guy say something about how he doesn't like seeing money being thrown on women. He's like, I wish we could have like little paper hearts or something. And I was like,
oh, that's corny.
I'm like, he's like, I want to shower women with like hearts or like rose petals or something.
That's
and
sweet.
I'm like, okay, that's, yeah. But at the same time, this is a way for women to take their power back from a very disenfranchising patriarchal society and a very, the dominator culture. It is a kind of unusual thing, but nothing to me is like, it's so much fun. I feel like I'm like, it's so surreal. It's like, is this even real life when somebody is literally, making it rain, taking $100 in singles and just throwing it on you and just showering down. It's like, yes, I am a delicate flower in a rainforest, rain on me.
Wow.
It's fun. It's exciting. It's empowering. It's novel,
But all sexuality is pure in its experience of how folks do it, if it's gone into as a experience that can be healing and loving. And
right.
If that's not the case, I'm sure it never is.
And I'll mention too, kind of going back to what I was saying about, is it authentic or is it phony? Mm-hmm. How some guys, they think it's phony, and I would say that is going to vary from dancer to dancer.
Of course.
From client to client. Yeah. Absolutely. So if I have genuine attraction to a man and I'm actually curious to know, like, wow, like what it would be like to kind of be real close to him, then I'm going to be more... It's just going to be more natural.
Yeah, of course.
And then I seek out people that I feel I can be authentic with. So it's not like I have to really try hard to be authentic. It just happens. And then, of course, there are dancers who are really guarded. If you're feeling that a dancer is not being authentic with you, it's probably because she's handling a lot of trauma. And this is one of her ways of dealing with her wounds, is that by putting out this armor, it's easier for her, it's safer for her to show up in the way that she thinks you want to see her and not as herself, because she's been hurt too many times or devalued too many times.
Totally.
So I think in those cases, if a guy feels like that's the kind of version that he's getting from a dancer, my advice to him would be, 1, don't take it personally. 2, don't stereotype strippers as all, manipulative money grubbers. That's just, it's not kind and it's not true. And also just try to be understanding and compassionate. Even, you don't have to say anything, you don't have to do anything, just trying to even imagine for a minute why she might show up that way, I think would bring a lot of insight into that kind of mindset.
It's very wise.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, one of the things I really wanted to touch on was, and you having worked at Hooters is part of this too, because my main experience in this is having run a restaurant and had some Hooters girls who worked for me. And the thing that I find in common amongst most of those girls, and the thing that strippers as well, is just the general comfort with men that I don't see in the whole of society. Like,
oh, that's very
most of
interesting.
the girls I know who are very sexual and embody that total position, and a lot of that comes from those arenas, but those women are very comfortable with men. And a lot of women, the opposite of that, man, is like there are plenty of women, in fact, a majority, you can feel their reticence to be open, to be a man. Like I'm sure it all comes from, it's a learned behavior. It's got to be, the standoffishness, you raise your hand to ask a question, the girl next to you is like, oh crap, it's going to hit me, or whatever. That's, so I want you to talk on the kind of the idea of a man as dangerous and your impression of a man, where in the strip club do you see the tenderness come through? Because I feel that men are it is a repressed aspect of men, the lack of sentiment and sensuality and all of those things. But
yeah, it's terrible.
Relate to me your impression of men in general.
Okay, so I'm going to bring you back to psychology a little bit again. I'm reading this book right now called How to Be an Adult in Relationship, The 5 Keys to Mindful Loving. My partner is a therapist and we do a lot of relational work. And so one of the things that all human beings are inherently deserving of as children from their parents, there are these 5 things. There are the 5 A's: attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing. Now, most of us, like I said, we have our kind of family of origin issues where we didn't receive all those things. And if we did receive them, it was maybe kind of sporadic and not enough. So we become adults, and then we find ways to relate to our, what we consider to be kind of some deficits. We have needs, and we find ways to meet those needs. And one way that I have found to meet this need of, I crave affection and attention and appreciation from men. And I, that was something that was kind of lacking from my father. The allowing, he wasn't going to allow me to be a dancer the way that my husband allows me to be a dancer and to be a sexual, sensual, independent, fiercely powerful woman, and he supports that. And that is even better. Yeah. So, I think that if men are coming at it from this kind of way of being able to provide those things, or at least some of those things, if a fella can be affectionate and attentive, that's really nice. And in our culture, look at our president. We have this really awful kind of thing that's it's like a virus, or it's like this toxic male aggressive energy. When I have customers coming in that are young, usually the young guys, I have to say, are not the most mature, and they don't understand. How many times can you tell somebody, no, don't kiss me, don't touch me there. Hey, I said no. Hey, you know what? We're going to take a pause for a second and talk about consent, because you really are not paying attention. And I don't know where this came from, that women like guys to be forceful, because I don't like guys to be forceful. I want guys to be respectful.
I think a lot of it has to do with porn, personally.
You know what? You're probably right.
And media. It's all sexualization in media is very violent.
Yeah.
It's got, and even arguably, I was talking to someone a little while ago, tantric sex, blah, 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 another podcast. But the modern concept of sex in America is very sort of violent, right?
It's awful. It's really kind of tragic, because I think that it just really messes with relationships in general. The
relationships men have with women and vice versa. Women
are more guarded, or they're more repressed.
Back to what you said about the 5 A's, I think it's also important to note that the other person who's paying that both desires and needs are being met together. Yeah. That both parties are coming to fulfill each other in that way.
So that's when you have a dancer who is more guarded and who maybe is disembodied or really high or really drunk. She's not going to be very attentive. She's not going to be very affectionate. She's going to kind of just do her thing, and then it's probably not going to be very satisfying for the client. I have had people before have danced with one girl and then come to me and be like, whoa, like wildly different experience, like top notch, 5 stars.
Good full.
I joke sometimes about like, if I'm trying to sell a lap dance to a guy I've never danced for, I'm like, I get rave reviews. Like you're not going to be disappointed.
Rave reviews.
This is my Yelp page. Here are the comments.
That would be awesome. Well, hey, that's the hour. So,
Yeah.
as no surprise, we barely scratched the surface. So, but thank you very much for coming on the show. That was amazing.
Thank you for having me, and you're welcome.
Anyone out there, if you wanted to find Zoe, you'd have to find a strip club in downtown Boulder and figure that out for yourself. It's a great place, very classy. So I've only been in 4 strip clubs ever, but I did like it. I definitely liked the light truss and the see-through. And being on the same level with the stripper was very nice.
I really love the atmosphere. And, the DJs are great. The bartenders are amazing. It's a really pleasant little atmosphere. It's a small club, too. So, you can kind of sit back and enjoy and just have a lot of fun.
Right on. Well, and you will be back because there's by no means even close to your whole life. And you do some very interesting stuff, which I'm very excited to talk about. So we'll have you back at some point.
I have a whole nonprofit related to relationship and consent and anti-oppression and empowerment. Those are our values, actually.
Yeah, so the consent episode will get you back.
Yeah.
So.
Very
right on.
good.
And as usual, I've been joined by Ryan Foo.
What's up?
And I am Sampson. This has been Nothing Explained. I hope you haven't learned anything. That's not true. All right, and we'll see you on the next one, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
Woo!